I didn't expect it to feel this uncomfortable. Not the silence, not the waiting, not even the moment when everything we thought we were attracting started quietly falling apart. It started in the most ordinary way. I remember sitting across from Maya at a small coffee shop, the kind with chipped wooden tables and soft music you barely notice. It was a Tuesday afternoon, nothing special. She had her notebook open, filled with neat handwriting and underlined phrases. "Say it like you mean it," she told me, sliding the notebook toward me. Written at the top was a sentence: "I am attracting a healthy, loving relationship into my life." I smiled, a little unsure. "You really believe this works?" She didn't hesitate. "Not just believe, I've seen it." That was Maya, calm, grounded, but quietly certain. The kind of certainty that makes you question your own doubts. At that point in my life, I wasn't exactly skeptical, but I wasn't convinced either. Relationships had always felt complicated to me. Not dramatic, not chaotic, just off. Like something subtle never aligned. I remember thinking, maybe I've just been choosing wrong people. Maya had a different explanation. "It's not who you choose, it's what you expect." That stuck with me more than I wanted to admit. So I agreed. We made it a routine. Every morning, a few minutes of writing, visualizing, repeating the same idea, that we were ready for love, that we deserved it, that it was already on its way. At first it felt almost silly, but there was something strangely calming about it too. Like we were organizing our thoughts, setting a direction, even if we didn't fully understand how it worked. Weeks passed. Nothing dramatic happened, but something shifted. I started noticing people more. Conversations felt slightly different. I was more aware of how I showed up, what I said, how I reacted, what I expected. It wasn't like love suddenly appeared. It was quieter than that. Then something small happened, and it didn't make sense at first. Maya started pulling away. Not in an obvious way. She still showed up, still smiled, still talked about manifestation, but there was a subtle hesitation in her energy, like she was second-guessing something she hadn't mentioned yet. One afternoon, I asked her directly, "Are you still doing it, the journaling?" She paused for a second too long. "Yeah," she said, "just not as much." I remember thinking that was strange. She was the one who introduced me to all of this. She was the one who believed in it more than anyone. "Why?" I asked. She shrugged. "I don't know. It started feeling off." That word stuck with me. Off. I didn't push further, but I noticed things after that. She stopped talking about the future in the same way. She became more observant, quieter, like she was watching something unfold instead of trying to control it. Meanwhile, something completely different was happening to me. I met someone. It wasn't dramatic, no instant spark, no movie-like moment, just a normal introduction through a mutual friend. Her name was Rachel. At first it felt easy. Too easy, maybe. We talked, laughed, spent time together. There was no confusion, no mixed signals. It felt like everything I had been trying to attract was finally here. I remember telling Maya about her. She listened carefully, nodding, but there was something in her expression I couldn't quite read. "That's good," she said. "Just pay attention." "Pay attention to what?" She looked at me for a moment and then said quietly, "To how you actually feel, not how you think you should feel." I brushed it off at the time, because everything seemed right. But deep down, there was another thought. Why does this feel familiar? It wasn't Rachel. It was something else. Something in me. Around that time, Maya finally told me what was bothering her. We were walking through a quiet street, late evening, when she said it. "I stopped manifesting love." I looked at her, confused. "Why?" She took a breath before answering. "Because I realized I wasn't attracting someone new. I waited. I was attracting the same pattern, just in a different form." That hit harder than I expected. She explained how during those weeks of manifesting, she became more aware, not of new opportunities, but of her own expectations. She kept writing that she wanted a healthy relationship, but when she paid attention, she realized she didn't actually know what that felt like. There was no drama in her voice, just clarity. She continued, "I wasn't attracting love. I was repeating what felt familiar and calling it love." I didn't respond right away because something about that felt uncomfortably true. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I replayed my conversations with Rachel, the moments I dismissed, the things I adjusted without realizing. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I hadn't considered before. Am I choosing this or just recognizing it? There's a difference, and I hadn't noticed it until then. The turning point wasn't dramatic. There was no argument, no breaking point, just a quiet moment where I decided to pause and look honestly at what I was experiencing. Not what I wanted to be, not what I had manifested, but what it actually was. And the truth was, I was repeating something. The same emotional patterns, the same subtle compromises, the same sense of trying to make something fit. It wasn't about Rachel being wrong, it was about me not being honest. So I made a decision, not to manifest better, not to try harder, but to pause, to step back from the idea that I needed to attract something and instead understand what I was already doing. That decision changed everything. Not immediately, not dramatically, but internally. I started noticing my reactions more, my assumptions, the way I interpreted situations. I realized how much of my behavior wasn't conscious. It was automatic, learned, repeated. Maya and I talked more after that, not about manifestation as a tool, but about perception, about how easily we confuse familiarity with compatibility, about how the mind looks for patterns it already understands, even if those patterns don't serve us. Over time, things with Rachel naturally faded. No drama, no conflict, just a quiet realization that it wasn't aligned, not in the way I thought it was. And surprisingly, I didn't feel disappointed. I felt aware, which was new. Looking back, I understand why it shocked everyone. Because from the outside, it looked like we were doing everything right, setting intentions, staying positive, believing in outcomes. But internally, we were uncovering something deeper, something less comfortable. We weren't learning how to attract love, we were learning how we had been unconsciously shaping it all along. Through assumptions, through expectations, through patterns we didn't question. I still think about that notebook sometimes. The sentence at the top of the page. I am attracting a healthy, loving relationship into my life. It wasn't wrong, but it wasn't complete either. Because the real question isn't what you're attracting, it's what feels normal to you and why. And once you see that clearly, you don't just change what shows up in your life, you change how you recognize it.